morning, and welcome to Investors Thrive, presented by Rick Fuller. He's the team leader of the #1 team in the San Francisco Bay Area and Sac County for most recent sales, according to Zillow. Rick is a national real estate coach and community leader with 4 offices, 3 in the Bay Area and 1 in Sac County. He also has 1,000 5-star reviews online. I'm Christina Morales. I'm a writer and marketer. Rick is my friend, he's my mentor, he's my go-to guy for anything exercise, real estate, and finances. He is a one-stop shop.
You threw the exercise in there. That's a surprise.
Well, I do have my treadmill in the garage, haven't used it in 2 weeks, but that is a different topic for a different day.
Yeah. We'll do the next webinar will be on commitment, right, Christina?
I want to go there right now. I committed to 10 webinars, and we are on webinar, is this 11?
Oh my goodness, yes, it's an 11.
Yeah, so there, I've shown my commitment.
You are awesome.
Thank you. Well, this webinar should last about 45 minutes. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box or the Q&A box. Rick will be more than happy to answer any questions you have or address any comments you may have. So we started this webinar when shelter in place started, and now we survived through it. Now a lot of places, we're in the Bay Area, a lot of places are opening up. So we're in the pivot season of this, Survive, Pivot, and Thrive. We've started 2 Facebook groups and 2 web pages, so agentsthrive.com and Investors Thrive. And all of this, the Investors Thrive came because you posted something on Facebook asking, are people interested in investing in real estate? Can you tell me a little bit about that as we get started?
Well, you know, Christina, we did a webinar some time ago, and I just made a comment about the 4 R's of a realtor's financial plan. And those that know me, they know that I've drawn this out on a napkin somewhere for them in a restaurant. They know that I've walked them through it. I meet with people on a regular basis and talking about this plan. It's just something we created, and it's the 4 R's of a realtor's financial plan. When we mentioned that on a webinar, somebody said, tell us more. And I started thinking about it, like, Christina, we ought to do an entire webinar on that because it was very difficult within that short period of time to describe the 4 R's and the impact of the 4 R's, and that's the result of this today. And then what we did is, Christina, we posted on Facebook saying, hey, I'm just curious, would anybody be interested in hearing these topics on specifically real estate investing and how to have a financial plan as a real estate professional? And I was overwhelmed with the number of comments. Literally, they just peppered the page with, I'm in, I'd like to learn more, sign me up. And then we launched that investors group page, and even today, every day somebody's joining the group. It's just growing rapidly. And so it's a direct result in what, you know, our friends, our family, our clients wanted to hear from us on this topic. I've had the privilege of investing in real estate for over 20 years. I bought commercial property, residential property, in-state, out-of-state, vacation rentals, flips, holds, lease options, and kind of everything in between. And so I'm excited to kind of dive into this conversation and kind of unfold what we've been doing in a real, authentic way. You know, you can watch a late-night infomercial on real estate investing, but it just doesn't feel real to me. What we're going to share is some of the mistakes we've made and some of the things that we've done right and kind of everything in between. So I'm really, really excited about this series that we're launching called Investors Thrive. You know, you built a website to help facilitate all the resources, because you know what happens, Christina, you and I start talking and we're like, okay, what about this resource? And we drop it on the website. Or what about this resource? We put it on the Facebook group page, and you've built a great website that holds all of that so that investors who want to thrive can visit the website or the Facebook group page and get all the information they need.
And it's so smart because with the current conditions, like a lot of people just losing their job for 1 month caused such panic. And so today we're talking about building your resources, building that plan B. That's so smart. Plus we've talked about thriving in the real estate market and how real estate is going to shift hands. And so it's the timing couldn't be better to plan for your finances, to plan for your future, to plan for the storms ahead, because no matter what, something is going to happen. Storms do happen. And so this is going to be so valuable. And I've heard you talk about this with the team, and I'm ready to hear it again because I'm the slow drip type of person. I don't buy big purchase, but that little Amazon $20 purchase. So this will inspire me. And my husband is grateful, once again, that we're discussing this. So can you get us started a little bit and talk about how this whole topic came about? What did you say? You've been talking about this for 10 years and developing?
Yeah, we've been talking about the 4 R's of a financial plan for over 10 years. And
wow.
We've written it out. We've had people over to our house of all ages, shared it with them, and really it's our plan. It's my wife and I's plan that we've been using for nearly 10 years now. And we've been sharing it with anyone that will listen, because I think it provides a holistic view of finances and how to build your financial portfolio, if you will. And it's a holistic plan. It just doesn't take one slice of the pie. It looks at the entire pie. And what I found in my life is that great leaders have always been great simplifiers for me. So if I can simplify it in such a way that you can see it with your mind's eye, then you can achieve it. But you got to be able to see it first. And the moment you think I can't do it, you won't achieve it. But if you can begin to say, that's hard, I could do that. Like if I spent 2 years, 5 years, 10 years focusing on this plan, where would I be? And those that I shared this with over 10 years ago, and they've met with me and they said, Rick, we own our dream home. We own houses on a lake. We've paid off our college debt. We've saved money for retirement. I've got money in reserves. Like, we're seeing that. Now, that did not happen overnight. None of this stuff I'm going to share with you, it's like, okay, tomorrow you're going to have it. No. This is kind of a lifelong plan. But if you begin working on it, you can accomplish great things. And so today, we're going to start really kind of at the overview. On future webinars, I'm really going to dive in, and our area of expertise is real estate. You know, Christina, I was looking the other day, and we've helped 1,000 people invest in real estate. Over 1,000 people in the last 15 years invest in real estate. So I'm going to stay on that topic. Today, I'm going to go much broader with you, because you need to have a holistic plan before we look at one piece of it. And real estate is an important piece. It's a necessary piece, but it's not the only piece of this plan. So in some sense, I'm going to take you 25,000 foot in the elevation. We're going to look at the broad horizon and where you're going, and then we're going to land the plane on future webinars and talk specifically in the weeds, in the dirt, about how you invest in real estate and do it right.
Well, that sounds awesome. So let's get started, because our time always flies by.
Yes, it does. So, and if you have comments that you want to put in the chat box or questions, feel free to do so, and we'll try to answer them as we go. Otherwise, we'll keep plodding along.
All right, so let's get started. What's point number 1, Rick?
So the first thing I want to do, and if you could put up that slide, let's start with our first slide, and Christina will be putting that up, because I want to talk to you about kind of money in general, the 4 R's of a realtor's plan to $1 million. And by the way, if you're on this call, and a lot of people are that are not real estate agents, maybe you're just investors, or maybe you're got a W-2 job and you get paid every 2 weeks or semi-monthly, this applies, okay? These things apply to you. What I have found is a lot of the people that listen to us and that are on these webinars, they're real estate agents all over North America, but it's not limited to real estate agents. So I talk a lot about how this is a realtor plan. You can apply this if you're a small business owner. All right, so I want to kind of take a look at this chart that we wrote. And see, at the bottom, you're going to notice it says age. And then on the far left, you'll say income. You're going to see that we are contrasting earned income versus passive income. Here's what I found is when people are young, early in their life, they focused on earned income. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, Christina, they go to work. Maybe they're an employee. They get paid every 2 weeks. They're paid hourly. They're paid salary. And in some sense, they are trading their hours for dollars. And frankly, I think most of us start off that way, right? There's these visions of grandeur that, we can buy investment property, but typically that comes later in life as your earned income becomes established. Later on, we're going to tell you that your greatest wealth building tool is your income. So what we're going to advocate is that early in life, you're going to be focused on earned income, and you need to gradually grow that passive income to where later in life, as you're older or more mature, your earned income is smaller, but your passive income is so much bigger. Now, you talked about exercise. Yesterday, I went for a bike ride, and I went on a mountain bike yesterday, and the hill that I climbed was very, very steep. The initial hill going to this ridge, it was steep, and my heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. I'm glad nobody was around me because I'm just like sucking wind, right? And when you're later on in life, you can feel like these plans become like climbing Mount Everest. They can feel like climbing in California, Half Dome, right? It's steep. Now on the back side of this ridge, once I reach the ridge, I go down and there's a gradual decline all the way back to the base, right? All the way back to the valley. So when I came back up the hill, I climbed the same elevation on my bike, but it was much longer. It was a much easier path. My heart rate didn't reach the height that it did coming in, because that was a far more gradual climb. What you're going to find with real estate investing is very similar. Any type of investing, you can start earlier in life. It's more of a gradual hill. If you wait until you're later on in later years of your life, you can still do it. It can be done, but the hill's much, much steeper. So we want to get you started early in life with this strategy, where from the beginning, you're already preparing for passive income as your earned income continues to climb, to the point where at some point in your life, your passive income is greater than even your earned income. In other words, you're working less for your money and your money is working more for you. And that's part of this strategy that we're going to talk about with the 4 R's. And we like to think of these 4 R's as buckets. They're buckets. And our goal is for you to fill those buckets over the course of your life with earned income and eventually translate that into passive income.
What's the ideal age for someone to start this process? Like, okay, it's too late for me. I just had my birthday over the weekend, but I have my kids and they're little. So what can I instill in them? Like, is 25 the right age for them to get started, or when they start their careers?
Christina, I'm convinced if you're still sucking wind in life, it's not too late. Like, you might be in your 50s, 60s. You can do this. You can be in your 70s on this webinar. You can do this. You can be in your 80s. You can do this. It's a steeper hill. So starting earlier, it's like me riding that bike. It was a far more gradual hill. So we want you to start as early as you can. Honestly, I didn't know these principles in my 20s. Matter of fact, most of what I invested in my 20s, I bought it wrong, I held it wrong, and I sold it wrong. Now in my 40s, I've learned some lessons in that process, and having helped 1,000 people do the exact same thing about buying, investing in real estate, we've learned some best practices, which is why we decided to do this podcast and webinar. So I would tell you, start, as long as you're sucking wind, get started on this. Don't wait another day. There's times in my life where I'm going to start a workout plan, or I'm going to start exercising or eating right, and I always want to start on Monday. Right? It can be Sunday, and if I miss Monday and it's Tuesday, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to start on Wednesday. I'll start next Monday. Don't do that with this. Start right now. Start today. Start the moment this webinar is over, and you pencil out these 4 R's for your life. You start building passive income in your life. And it's going to start small. It's going to be minimal. You're going to be frustrated, and it's going to grow. The 8th wonder of the world, if you will, is compounding interest. Grows and grows and grows and grows. And that's what we're going to be focusing on these calls.
Okay, great. So how do we get started?
Let's go to the next slide. So let me talk to you about this myth. And I'll tell you where it came from. I was in my early 30s and I met with a financial advisor. My wife, Jennifer, knew we were meeting with a financial advisor and she couldn't attend. And he came to my office and he presented a plan, and it was a retirement plan. Christina, maybe you've had this experience, you and Vince have had this experience. And he said, if I was going to have a retirement, then I needed to invest or save so much money every month, right? And he gave me that number. And I remember coming home and my wife said, hey, how did that appointment go? And I said, well, he told me basically, if we don't eat for the next 30 years and we don't clothe our children, we too can have a retirement. And I realized there was a great myth that his world, the retirement world, was the entire pie. Like I had to contribute all of that money into that one pie, that I had to be dependent on that one pie. I had to be dependent on the stock market. I had to be dependent on mutual funds. I had to be dependent on that particular company. And I realized that that was a myth. And I realized that the retirement package is only a part of the plan. Now, it's not the entire plan. It's only a part of the plan. And when I wrapped my head around that the numbers that he was giving me at that time were only a piece of the puzzle and didn't have to represent the entire retirement package for my wife and I later on in the future, I began to have hope. Because although it'd be difficult, it'd be like climbing that hill, it was possible. I could see the top between the clouds, and I could see the peak. I wasn't there yet, but I could see it. And when I started putting that into its proper perspective, I had a hope and encouragement. It wasn't the only thing, it was just one thing.
That's so good, because a lot of our people on our call are real estate agents or small business owners or independent contractors. So it's, they don't have the same retirement plans as my husband works for the county. And so he has a great retirement plan, but people in the ministry, they don't have this plan. So it's so great that you're addressing this for the other percentage of employees out there, workers out there.
Well, in the real estate business specifically, and independent contractors, they have often not contributed to their retirement. And by the time they kind of say, wow, something needs to happen in order for my retirement to be a reality, it's too late. Now they're climbing that Mount Everest. Now they're climbing Half Dome. The hill is really, really steep. And what we try to do is bring hope that although this is a part of the plan, it only represents one slice of the plan. And there are really 4 R's that we like to focus on.
So then so if it's not retirement, where do we go from here?
Yeah, actually go to the next slide, Christina. We'll kind of look at it. What we believe is that your income is like a faucet. And your job over the course of your working years, during those earned income years, take that faucet and fill buckets. Now, what I have found is that a lot of people, they get the faucet going and they're producing a great income, but they just let it run down the drain. It's just there's nothing that's being saved, nothing that's being accumulated. Their income comes in, the faucet is just, full blast, right? But it's going down the drain, and they're spending their money on liabilities. They have a bigger house, and they have a bigger car, and they take nicer vacations, and they wear nicer clothes, but at the end of the day, their buckets are empty because it just went down the drain on liabilities. And what we're saying is that these 4 R's represent, in some sense, a bucket. And we're advocating that you spend your days filling these buckets. Now, is some going to go down the drain? Yes, it is. And there's parts of it that go to liabilities. But the truth is, if you fill those buckets, you can utilize some of that for whatever you want to use it for, right? But you got to fill those buckets in life. And if you don't have a faucet going, you've got a problem. right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't have that earned income, how can you fill those buckets? And if you just let it go down the drain, it's just going to waste. And I saw this in 2008, that when the market crashed, people were trading in their nice cars that were highly leveraged.
Mm-hmm.
They were trading in their homes and foreclosures and short sales because they owed so much on the home. They had no retirement plan, and they definitely had no reserves. And so when we started looking at that, they just hadn't spent the time filling their buckets. So what we want you to do is we want you to think of 4 buckets to fill. And let's take it to the next slide, Christine, and I'll kind of walk you through what those are. And the first bucket is retirement. Now notice what I said earlier, that the retirement is only a part of the plan. It's not the entire plan.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually, I think, 4 pieces to this plan. Now, I've taught this for over 10 years, and people have challenged me on this because, you know, one thing I know is that everybody has an opinion on money, right? Like, you ask anyone about money, whether they have some or they don't have some, everybody's got an opinion on money.
True.
And at the end of the day, I have found that these 4 R's are solid, and they help translate to a reasonable plan that you can implement in your life. And one piece of it is your retirement. And we believe in your retirement. And if you're a real estate professional, if you're you know, in a W-2 employment, we believe that you ought to be saving money for your retirement. And personally, we like Dave Ramsey's plan of saving 15% to your retirement, what Dave describes as one of the baby steps, that when you reach that baby step, start saving 15% of your gross income to retirement. And those, Christina, you and I work on a real estate team, and those team members often choose what we call a Roth IRA. And a Roth IRA, named after a guy by the name of John Roth, and a Roth IRA allows you to invest money and grows tax-free. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not going to give you financial advice. That's just what they're doing. And eventually what I have found is that most of our real estate agents, as they start getting into a groove and they start building, they no longer qualify for that Roth IRA, and now they convert to a SEP IRA. And what we have found is that once you reach that income point that you no longer qualify, then they move to a SEP IRA. And the benefit to the SEP IRA is it doesn't grow tax-free, but it grows tax-deferred. It grows tax-deferred. But the benefit is you can contribute a lot more. Currently, the rule is that if you contribute to your Roth IRA, you could do up to $5,700 a year, or about, you know, about $470 a month. When it comes to the SEP IRA, you can contribute $57,000 a year. All right. So when our team members, when they start with us, they're almost always do that Roth IRA, and then as they start becoming more and more successful, start building their business, start getting in the groove of our real estate team, and they exceed the income limits, and now they convert to a SEP IRA. And this is a part of your plan. It's an important part of your plan. And if you have questions about it, neither you or I are financial advisors, Christina, so go get a financial advisor, and they can give you some guidance along the way. We just want to recognize that it's a part of it. Now, here's the interesting thing. When I meet with real estate people, they say, man, Rick, it's all real estate. And when I meet with financial advisors, they think it's all retirement. And I'm going to tell you it's not one or the other. It's a combination of things that produce the best results. And the next R that we want to kind of look at is real estate. When I was in my 20s, Christine, I had this crazy idea of owning 3 homes by the time I was 30. And
wow.
Few people knew about it, and they teased me and said, you know, Rick, do you own 3 homes by 30? And I did. And I owned 3 houses by the age of 30.
Wow. And
then later on in my 30s, I bought lots of other variations of property and real estate and commercial home property and vacation homes and so forth. And I realized in my 30s, when the market took a nosedive, that having your name simply on title, which was my aspiration, was a very shallow or a very hollow goal. Today, my focus is not just on owning real estate, but owning paid for real estate. Okay, owning real estate free and clear. If you think about it, 100% of the foreclosures occur with a home mortgage. In other words, foreclosures don't happen without a mortgage.
Right.
So if I can own these properties free and clear, we can weather various storms. So we don't teach the OPM strategy, right? The other people's money strategy. We don't teach that. We don't teach every time you gain a penny in equity to suck it out of that property and invest in another. We don't teach that. What we teach is how you buy property, you buy it right, you buy it with the right strategy, and either you buy it free and clear or you pay it off quickly. And we show you how to do that with an accelerated amortization schedule that moves what most people are paying on their mortgage for 30 years down to 6, 7, or 8 years.
Wow.
As they begin to accelerate their mortgage. And then maybe like a credit card debt, if you've ever thought about credit card debt, they snowball their credit card debt, they snowball real estate. In other words, they get it paid off where it's owned free and clear. That's the game changer. Remember, it's not owning real estate is hazardous to your wealth, right? So we want people to own real estate. We want them to own it right, because if you own it free and clear, you're not simply funding the bank's mortgage, you're creating income for yourself and your family.
That's so smart, because a lot of people lost their jobs and a lot of renters couldn't pay the rent. So if you still had a mortgage on that, how are you as a real estate owner going to pay out? But if you own it free and clear, it's not going to hit you as hard. So that's so smart.
And a lot of people, when they buy real estate, they buy it wrong. Like they buy real estate for investment like they would their primary residence. Oh, I'd really like to have a pool, so they buy a home with a pool. Well, think about that from a rental perspective. Talking about renting homes, the liability that comes with owning a pool. They buy it wrong. They go out and say, well, I want a 3,000 square foot home. Well, a 3,000 square foot home has carpet, maybe 2,500 square feet of carpet. So if you have to replace that carpet, you have greater liability, right? So they buy it wrong. So what we teach is how you buy it right, and how you identify first what the demand is for that market. Maybe it's a demand on vacation homes. Is there a demand in that market to buy a vacation home, to own a vacation home? Is there a need for that in that community? Is there a demand for owning a rental property? Are there tenants that would want to live in that community, live in that area? How about deterioration? We talk about what we call in real estate the 888. It's thinking about 8% for vacancy a year, thinking about 8% for maintenance a year, and thinking about 8% for management. A lot of people don't take that into consideration when they're making a purchase, and so they buy it wrong. And Christina, you and I are going to, for the sake of time, we're going to have to do a whole webinar on these ideas.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because we want to buy it right.
Yeah.
If you buy it wrong, it is very difficult to fix that problem. If you buy it right, you're on the right track. You know, a lot of times when we think about winning a race, you think about finishing a race. But really, how you start a race has a lot to do with how you finish it. Same thing in real estate. How you buy real estate has a lot to do with the outcome and the results that you have in owning real estate. I talk to people all the time. Well, I don't want to be a landlord. Well, why not? Well, because I don't want to have to deal with tenants. Well, if you had a dozen applications for that property, couldn't you pick legally, legitimately, the very best applicant? The one that is most responsibly financially. Maybe the one that's going to take the best care of your property. Maybe the one that's going to ensure that the rent is paid in a timely manner. Well, if you bought it wrong and there's only one applicant and you're desperate, you often accept and take only that one applicant. So buying the right real estate is critical to having a great experience. How you start a race has a lot to do with how you finish it. How you buy property has a lot to do with your overall outcome and results of owning real estate and your experience in owning real estate.
That's my biggest fear, is renting. Because when I met with you to sell the house I'm in right now, you said, are you sure you want to sell it? Do you want to rent it? Because this is a perfect rental. We discussed 3 and 2, 1,400 square feet, you know, and I'm terrified of renters. So I think that's another great thing for Investors Thrive, is finding the right renters, because that is my biggest fear, is having my house destroyed.
Well, and it's a reasonable concern when it comes to real estate, right? It's a reasonable concern. So then you manage that risk. Can you eliminate it? Absolutely not. But you manage that risk. And as you effectively manage that risk, you reduce the likelihood of that's going to happen. And a lot of owning real estate is buying the right property from the very beginning. You know, there's a Pareto principle that we often talk about. We call it the 80-20 rule. If there's an 80-20 rule in buying real estate, it's buy the right real estate is 80%, and then the 20% will follow suit. Buy the wrong property in the wrong area, in the wrong community that has a lot of deferred maintenance, that's in an area with significant limitations, an area that's declining in value, an area that is solely dependent on one economy, then you're not going to have a great experience buying real estate. So in our future webinars, this is going to be the quadrant that I want to stay focused on, owning real estate. And I want to stay focused on owning paid for real estate. Like, how do you pay it off and own it free and clear? Because at the end of the day, we want you to use that as part of an income strategy, a passive income strategy, which is now taking, you know, your earned income and converting it to passive income so that you can have a monthly cash flow of income that extends beyond any expenses that you might have.
I think we need to make some checklists because I see a lot of resources that we need to make in our head, which is great. I think we need to, really build on this and do a step-by-step plan. So,
you know, what we did on the Facebook group page already, Christine, is we put our checklist to what we look for in buying a property. Like, it's there and you can download it. It's free and it's on the Facebook group page, and you can utilize that as a part of evaluating property. And later on, we'll get into describing more of those resources that we put on the website as well as Facebook. On the website, you put the resources there on how to buy property and how to sell property and how to manage this shifting market that we're in. And those resources are there for somebody to use as a guide to walk them through this process.
Perfect. So what's the third bucket?
All right, well, let's go to it. So the third bucket, and I got to confess on this one, it's reserves. And my confession is, for years, I have skipped over it. Now, I've acknowledged it, but I would spend a lot of time talking about retirement. I'd spend a ton of time talking about real estate, and then I would say something like, and there's reserves, right? And then today, we're in shelter in place. This coronavirus impact, COVID-19, and it has underscored the importance of this third R. Because if you had reserves in this market, you wouldn't be dependent on stimulus checks or PPP programs or EIDLs or all the programs that are available. Like, you could utilize them, but you wouldn't be dependent on them because we had reserves. You wouldn't be dependent on a government stimulus check, right? You wouldn't be dependent because you had reserves. And what happens as a country, I've read statistics that said the average person couldn't write a check for $400. Well, the moment that faucet slows down, think COVID-19, think shelter in place, think about businesses that are deemed essential and non-essential. And in some sense, the government's picking winners and losers in that environment. Like, they're essential, they're non-essential. Those businesses thrive. These businesses are struggling to survive. The importance of reserves has really been underscored in the shelter-in-place market. And I am convinced that you need to have 3 to 6 months expenses. Like, you need to have that set aside for reserves. You know, your mom would say, or your dad used to say, you know, set money aside for a rainy day. Like, it's going to rain. People say, well, Rick, be positive. I'm positive it's going to rain. Set money aside for a rainy day. Set money aside for reserves. And I'm going to tell you that if you have a business, maybe you're a real estate professional with a business, or maybe you're a small business owner, that you need to think parallel to your personal account, setting 3 to 6 months aside for your personal expenses. And you need to set aside 3 to 6 months for your business expenses. Now, we wouldn't call that in the business world savings. We'd call it retained earnings. You'd want to have those retained earnings because there are ebbs and flows of markets.
Mm-hmm.
And those that have reserves make better decisions. You think about it, the worst decisions I have made in my life is when I was desperate,
Mm-hmm.
I was dependent, and then I was dumb. Like those 3 Ds lined up. I was desperate, then I was dependent, then I was dumb. And so what I want to do is kind of level that by having reserves so that I'm not desperate,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dependent on some other outside source of income, and I don't have to operate in the DUMB, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by removing that pressure, I'm able to make better decisions. Now, if you think about it in the current environment that we're in, if you had reserves, the stock market has presented some great opportunities here in recent months. Stock market was knocking on the door of a Dow Jones at 30,000. It dropped down to 18,000 points. Today, it's back up around the $24,000 range. Who knows where it'll be by the time you watched it, but there was an opportunity there. And I'm convinced that a lifetime opportunity, an opportunity of a lifetime, only exists within the lifetime of that opportunity. Like it's gone. And if you had those reserves, you could make logical decisions to get back into the market at the right time, right? And so in the past, I would say, okay, there's retirement, there's real estate, and there's reserve, and I would just kind of skip over that. And today I'm pausing long enough to say there is a real life experience that underscores the importance of saving for that rainy day, having some money set aside. And if you don't have that money set aside, then you start growing that over time. Now that might mean you're saving. I remember when Jennifer and I were first married, we had absolutely nothing. Remember I told you the story, Christina, that we wrote down in a gas station in Fremont some of our goals. And one of the goals, we weren't even married yet, we were just dating, was to have $1,000 in our bank account. We wanted to see what would happen at the ATM machine when the receipt kicked out with $1,000. And I can remember thinking with Jennifer that, what I would expect to happen is there'd be like the bell would emerge from the top of the ATM and it would start, the light would go off, the red and blue light, and the siren would be like ding, 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 ding. Like he's a winner. He's got $1,000 in his bank account, right? And and that doesn't happen. And we had to learn the hard way through this process. Set money aside for a rainy day. If you're watching this and you're going through the shelter in place, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And today, this has been underscored by what we're going through and what we're experiencing.
That's so good. I'm going to move you along.
Yes, I know we always run short on time. And then Christina, you and I book several of these calls, these Zoom calls regularly. So I know we have another one after this, a hard stop. Okay, so you got retirement, you got real estate, you got reserves. Now I want to talk about residual income. I was at an event, I was speaking in Nashville, Tennessee for a national real estate coach, and a very, very nice lady came up to me, and I don't know, she didn't tell me her age. My guess, she's in her late 70s, early 80s, and she says, Rick, I've been selling real estate my entire life, and I've never invested in it myself, never invested in my retirement. And I'm ready to retire. What do I do? And then she went on to say, I'm thinking about just shutting my business down. Now, she had 30 years of real estate sales business experience. She had 30 years of goodwill, meaning that she simply opened her doors and people came in because they knew her, they liked her, and they trusted her. And she was about ready to turn off her business. She was about ready just to turn off the faucet, and she had no buckets filled. What a shame, right? If you think about it, if a dentist office sells, what is the dentist really selling? Are they selling their chair? Are they selling their tools? Are they selling their technology? I'm going to argue that the greatest value that the dentist has, the greatest value that the general contractor has, the greatest value that your local automotive shop has, it's not their tools and hardware and equipment. It's the goodwill that they've established, right? It's the fact that a new dentist comes in They open the doors, and there's a line of people standing out front that are accustomed to the way that the previous dentist did business. And if you can harness that, goodwill. And in our industry, especially in the real estate business, I see it over and over and over again. They simply say, I'm done, and they stop all that they've built. It is such a shame. And there's a way to create residual income. And what we found, and we created this on our team with what we call leads, meaning leaders on our team that receive a residual income, and coaches on our team that receive a residual income, is that what happens is you start off in the business with earned income. And eventually we start trying to help other people accomplish their goals. And as the more you do that, the more passive income that you can accumulate. And so if you can help enough people get what they want in life, you'll always have what you want in life. And so a lot of times the greatest skill set that you have isn't going to be just turning off the faucet. It's going to be translating those skills and the knowledge that you've learned and helping others accomplish their goal. Just simply turning the faucet off after doing business for 30 years, what a shame. So what does that look like practically speaking? Well, maybe you're going to become a coach and you're going to coach others in your particular industry. Maybe you're going to become a consultant. Maybe you're going to sell your business. There's a great book out there called Built to Sell and how you can build a business that's sellable. Maybe you're going to hire a manager that's going to manage the day-to-day operation and send you a residual income. Doesn't matter which option you choose for the purpose of this conversation. It's just that you choose an option, that you create that residual income, and that at the end of your days and whatever business that you're in, you don't simply shut off that faucet. You keep that faucet going and yet leverage your time where you don't have to be there to manage it. And that's a big part of creating residual income. And one of the great benefits of being in the insurance business, right? And think about the insurance business, is that every year somebody renews their policy. And as they renew their policy, that insurance agent receives a premium or receives a residual income from that premium. How do you build that in your business where it happens with less involvement? It's a highly leveraged use of your time. And you do that by building residual income.
This is so good because, my dad is a CPA and financial planner. I'm really good at 1 and 2, retirement and reserves, but the right side of the screen is something new for me. So I love having different options. Would rent be residual income from real estate if you have a paid off property? Does that count?
So we're going to talk about that being in the real estate bucket. You are correct. That's residual income, rental income. But that's in the real estate bucket. And the retirement bucket might be your 401k or your SEP IRA or your Roth IRA. Your reserves might be in a money market account, right? A savings account. You might, if you have a lot of money, you might ladder them with CDs, right? You might do those things in a reserve. The residual income is you ensuring that whatever you put your hands to for the last 10, 15, 20, some of you 30, 40 years, that you don't give that up. Like you create some residual income from that business effort. Because if you don't create that residual income, it's really it's just a shame, to be honest with you, that you have that knowledge base, that goodwill and trust with the consumer, and you just finally say, no, I'm out of business. No, I'm no longer in business anymore. No, I'm retired. Find a way to create residual income. On our real estate team, what we do is we help team members become leaders. As they become leaders, they lead others. And as they lead others, they receive a residual income. And the more people they lead, the more residual income they receive. So, that may not be possible in your business. So find a way to make it residual. Are you going to sell the business? You can hire a manager to manage the business. Are you going to receive a referral fee for the business? Are you going to coach, consult? What are you going to do to create residual income so that you have a highly leveraged use of your time and energy?
It's like the old saying, are you going to work for your money or is your money going to work for you?
That's exactly right, Christina. And what happens especially in the real estate industry, in my experience, real estate agents are like farmers. They help a lot of people plant seed in a farm, in an orchard. And they look back after 30 years of being in the business. Wow, look at all of these orchards that I've helped my friends and family and my clients create. They're beaming with healthy trees, with great, beautiful fruit. And then their hands are soil stained. They know that soil so well. It's nutrient-rich soil. And yet they look at their own field and it's barren. Like they know how to do it, but they never planted any of the seeds in their own business. They never filled those buckets in their own business, their own lives. And they look over the horizon thinking, wow, I helped all of these people accumulate wealth, build orchard after orchard after orchard, filled with trees and fruit and more seeds to plant more orchards. And my field has nothing but weeds. Fix that, change that, start today. Use this as a plan, use this as a guide, follow our Agents, our Investors Thrive series, and we'll walk you through step by step how to do it so that you can be educated. So you know the 4 R's, let's kind of take this a step further. What's interesting about the 4 R's is these 4 R's can create what we call PI. PI does not stand for private investigator. PI stands for passive income. Well, if you think about it, how could your retirement create passive income? Well, of course, we know that if you had enough money in your retirement, you could generally pull money out of that retirement or put that into certain asset classes that can produce a monthly, reoccurring, regular income. Now, that might be through dividends, that might be through an annuity, that might be through, what we call the 4% rule, which typically is a rule that says whatever amount of money you have in that account, you can pull out 4% a year without impacting the balance, right? Like you could use this in retirement and create a passive income without impacting the value of the asset value. What about the second R? How do you create passive income through real estate? By owning paid for, free and clear real estate, right? You own it free and clear. There's no debt on it. There's no mortgage on it. You own it free and clear. How do you do that? Well, you buy it right, and then you work to pay off the property. You get the right tenant who's paying the right amount of rent. You've considered what we call the 888, which I'll talk about in future calls for future podcasts. And what we want you to do is want you to own real estate. We want you to own it paid, and that'll create PI, passive income, right? Remember what the goal is to move from earned income early in your life to passive income later on in your life. And what about reserves? Well, you can create a passive income through reserves by having that in a CD, right? You can have a passive income that's being generated. And what about a residual income? Well, that's the definition of a residual income. The definition is that it's a highly leveraged use of your time. You took the asset. In this case, it's your business, your job, your career, and you've utilized it in such a way to create a passive income. See, these 4 R's, what's important about these 4 R's is not the asset value. It's the ability to create passive income. Going back full circle, that's the shift that we want those that are following our Investors Thrive to make from earned income to passive income. And you do that by having these 4 R's in place. And it's not enough to have just real estate or just retirement or just a little bit of money in your bank account or just a business. There's 4. And by having these 4, you realize that the retirement isn't the entire piece, it's only one slice of this pie.
So let's go to the next slide.
So as your net worth increases, net worth is if you took your assets, you own a house, and you minus your liabilities, maybe you have a mortgage, that becomes the net worth, right? And so you as your net worth increases, here's what happens. As this outer circle increases, right? You increase this outer circle over time by continuing to invest in that, by compounding interest, equity gain, the property is appreciating. What ends up happening is naturally it increases your passive income. So the 2 are related. So if we can increase your net worth, and we can do that right by not having all of this debt, so the bank's getting paid and not you, you will by in turn naturally increase your passive income. So my goal is to help you create net worth, because it's going to take that step in order to create a healthy passive income. Conversely, is if you don't focus on it and you shrink your net worth, the passive income will continue. So we want to expand that one, expand your net worth so that your passive income grows right along with it.
I was just talking to my parents yesterday, and they lived in Pleasant Hill 45 years ago. The house they bought was $24,000. On Redfin 2 days ago, it was $730.
But you know, we just sold a house in Concord. It was a very nice home, and we got the original flyer on the house, and it sold for $7,500. And I think we sold it for $750,000. And so it's absolutely what happened. See, the net worth grew. And what most people do, unfortunately, is as it grows, they just suck every penny of equity out.
Right.
Like, don't do that, right? You suck every penny of equity out. We're not increasing your net worth. Right? You're increasing your liability when you do that.
True.
So what we want to do is want to increase your net worth, and your passive income will grow along with it.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. So that's what my dad always says about the stock market. You're in it for the long term.
Yeah, the only people that get hurt on a roller coaster get off before it stops. So what are the 4 phases you're going to go through? And I think this is really important, that you're going to go through 4 phases. The first phase is what I call the think phase. You got to start thinking about this stuff, right? You ever talk to somebody like, and they didn't do it, they usually say, man, I wish I would have just started thinking about this. I wish I would have started in my 30s, because you got to start thinking about these things. And just going out and buying a property or going out investing and you don't know what you're doing, there are risks associated with that, right? So you want to begin to start thinking about this process. And if you've registered for this webinar, you're listening to this podcast, or you're watching this recorded message, congratulations, you're thinking about it. Right? Like, you've taken this first step. And this is a critical first step, because I'm going to tell you this, you need to become a student of the market, a student of these 4 R's. And it's not something that you do for 4 years and then you receive a degree. This is something you spend your life becoming a student, thinking about these things. Now, does it have to consume you? Of course not. Does it have to completely envelop you so that all you think about? Absolutely not. But you do need to be thinking these things through and spending time with people that have these experiences that can give you some guidance and best practice. And then what we found is that what happens is that you end up creating a gross income. And if we use simply for easy math and for simplicity, if that gross income is $1 million, it is not enough to stay at gross income. Now, gross income would be total receipts, total revenue that came in, right? Gross, total. Because there's a lot of myths out there right now of those that made $1 million, but they spent $1 million to make it. Some of them, they made $1 million and they spent 1.2 to make it. What a waste. What an exercise in futility. Complete waste of time to make it, but spend that same exact amount of money or even more to make that money. That's all vanity. It's all a waste. It's completely frustrating. It's what I call an exercise in futility. So what we want to do is we want to help you create that kind of gross income. And then we want to take you to step 3, which is to net that in. Okay, now what we're talking about is, okay, how do we create a gross income, and whatever you subtract in expenses or what it costs you to invest and make that money. And now there's a net, there's something left over. In real estate, I've said for years, I would much rather be the top netting agent in my office than the top grossing agent, right? If I was a part of a large brokerage, I'd rather be the top netting agent. And you know what's celebrated, Christina? It's not the top netting agent, it's the top grossing agent. It's like, okay, that person made X amount of money that particular month, or that person made X amount of money that particular year. To me, that means absolutely nothing, because if they don't take into consideration of what they spent to generate it, the key is to create net income, right? And that's how we're able to start getting that faucet to go and to start really cranking up that faucet. And then the 4th step is, once you've created net income, and we're filling those buckets, those passive income buckets, those 4 Rs, now we can begin to receive money. We begin to receive income. So what happens is you start with thinking, and then it becomes gross, then it becomes net, and then it becomes receiving. And it's going to follow those 4 steps for most people on this call. And what happens is, as you're growing your understanding and relationship with money, what ends up happening is you end up growing. Your character ends up growing. You end up thinking differently about money and resources and how you're using it.
Wait, you said in a past webinar about having different bank accounts. Would that also go along with this, where you have different bank accounts for each investment or property, and your net and your gross, like you were saying?
Well, I think it's important that you don't commingle, you don't mix the two. Like, you don't want your personal groceries to be mixed with your rental properties. You certainly don't want your personal expenses to be in your business account. It's very difficult to keep track of those expenses and to actually see if you're netting anything at all, if you've commingled or you've mixed those funds. And so what we're asking you to do is to keep those things separately. And the best way to do that is to have a separate bank account.
Sorry, I lost our podcast. I lost our slides.
All right, so the last 2 slides that you have, can you pull those back up? And then oh my goodness, we're down to just the last couple of minutes.
Right.
Maybe I'll just kind of talk about them if you are having a difficult time.
Yeah, I'm having difficulty, so if you could just...
Right. Well, let's just take it off these screen shares. So I want you to think about, so why are we doing this? Like, what's the why behind it? Simon Sinek did one of the most popular TED Talks beginning with why. And, Christina, you and I talked about the why we wanted to do this. Why do we want to teach people about real estate investing, and why do we want investors to thrive? Because, and the real reason behind it is because I think people, by knowing how to use money properly and appropriately, you're going to move from success in life to significance. In other words, some people are like, well, Rick, I don't really need all that money. Well, let me just tell you, it's very difficult to help a young lady who's perhaps a single mom pay for her utility bill if you can't pay for your own. It's very difficult to buy a car for a 16-year-old if you don't have a car yourself, right? It's very difficult to do those things unless you have some resources to do them. And we parallel money to that of a brick. A brick can be used for a negative purpose, like pick up a brick and throw it through somebody's window, a negative purpose, but it could also be used to build a hospital, very positive purpose. So the entire reason why we're doing this is we want those that are listening to what we're doing as investors to move from success. Many of you have already got that faucet going to significance. Like, you can make a difference in the lives of others. Money is not the only way you can do that. But it is a way. Money's not going to buy you happiness, but it's going to buy you a lot of options and options to help others. So all of that to say, we want this Investor Thrive to help you thrive to such a degree that you can help others thrive in the process. I believe we're blessed to be a blessing. I believe to whom much is given, much is required. And I believe I don't want to leave my potential untapped. And by investors knowing the strategies to invest and how they can thrive, you'll leave less of your potential untapped.
That's we have someone on our team that says talking with Rick is like drinking from a fire hose. You get so much information that it takes a lot of time to process everything. So this is a deep conversation, which clearly this is one of many because there are so many aspects to it. So thank you, Rick, for starting us out in this topic. And that's all the time we have for today. So we don't have any time for questions and answers, but you can email me, Christina with a CH, at rickfuller.com, and I will forward your questions to Rick, or I'll answer them myself. I'll also put a button on our Investors Thrive page, where you can ask questions to me, Rick, or the team, and we'll be happy to get back to you. You can join our Investors Thrive Facebook page, our group, to get all the latest information and resources. And like I said, you can go to investorsthrive.com and get our reference manuals. This webinar we'll post on there, and any resources that Rick said. So thank you so much, Rick, again, for sharing your plan. And we'll post more webinars on the website. We'll keep you all posted of the upcoming webinars. Thank you so much for spending part of your morning with us. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks, Rick.